And it's only when the vehicle moves from lane 3 to 2 that it stops the police officer going past, and the highway code advises just as such. Some people do say that if you stay in your lane and continue at the speed limit, as long as you don't move back to the right, that's not classed as undertaking. Well, this video is going to prove you wrong, because my viewer does exactly this, and the police pull him in. I do know the A1M very well. I used to live just a little bit further up the road in Peterborough, and I can honestly say it's one of the worst roads for lane discipline that I know. And you've probably heard me say before, poor lane discipline usually precedes an undertake. And this particular section of the A1M is a 3-lane motorway, so we're going to get plenty of middle lane hoggers here. Interestingly though, I do think the police officer driving this car that we're going to see in a moment was on the verge of undertaking someone. Let me know what you think. And it's only when the vehicle moves from lane 3 to 2 that it stops the police officer going past. They eventually hold back, and then move to lane 3. And this is when my viewer continues at the pace they're at and passes vehicles who are in lane 2. And this is exactly what many people think is totally fine. The police officer obviously thinks different. Watch what they do. Straight away, move back in behind my viewer, and they pull them in. First of all with a couple of flashes. And obviously because that may be difficult to recognise in the conditions, they resort to putting the blues on. For me though, the first offenders were the vehicles who were and are staying in lane 2 without moving correctly back to lane 1, which can also be classed as careless driving, but it's interesting, I don't see police officers pulling people in that much for that offence. I did also give my viewer a little bit of advice in this situation. I told them it was probably the immediacy of this undertake which made the police officer take this action. They should have been a little more patient and held back and allowed those vehicles a chance to move back to lane 1, and when they didn't, move to lane 3 and overtake them properly. However, my viewer did say the police officer was lovely. They gave them a little bit of advice and let them get on the way. So hopefully with this little piece of footage, we've dispelled a myth